Hi, and welcome to another edition of Next Steps, Tools for Transforming from Coping to Thriving. I am Dan Hegstead. Everything here is based on my book of the same title, and this is available on Amazon as a paperback and as a Kindle e-reader and as an Audible audiobook read by me. I won't say it'll make a great Christmas gift. This book is not for everybody. But if you'd like to give it as a gift, that's, I think, a good idea. You should buy this. The link for everything is on my website, danhegstead.com. And I am a speaker and trainer, and if you'd like to book me, all your questions can be answered there, and contact information, danhegstead.com. So this is going to be a little different. I'm not sure what to title this episode. It's really all about attitude, but it's just a shame that if I say attitude, people run away like I'm talking politics or religion, and it's a shame because attitude is everything. So this really is about attitude, but I think I'll title it Perspective. That's probably a good thing to do. For decades, people have been suggesting I read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. And I finally, after umpteen times, that's a lot of it being recommended, I finally did it, and I listened to it. I've just given up on reading books. I don't have the attention span. So I bought the audiobook, and I've listened to it. It's not terribly long. I totally recommend it, and I get why people have recommended it for so many years. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. This was written after World War II. Frankl spent the war in Nazi concentration camps, and as a psychiatrist, he was able to write about the experience, but not just from how they were so horribly abused, but not how you survived it physically. That was just capricious. It had almost nothing to do with you. There's almost nothing you could do to survive physically. You had a 1 in 28 chance of making it through. So most people just died, and for dumb reasons. So once you survive physically, but how do you survive mentally? And then how do you survive after the war when things are back to, I don't know what. I hate to use the term normal. He writes about this in terms we can understand. And I totally recommend it because, listen, if you can survive what he did and keep your brain, your whatever it is, intact, you can survive anything. You can survive anything. Talk about moving from coping to thriving. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Here's the description on Amazon. It says, internationally renowned psychiatrist Viktor Frankl endured years of unspeakable horror in Nazi death camps. During and partly because of his suffering, Dr. Frankl developed a revolutionary approach to psychotherapy known as logotherapy. At the core of his theory is the belief that man's primary motivational force is his search for meaning. Wow, search for meaning. I mean, okay, we're into some pretty deep stuff here, but that's the whole point of this book. This is some pretty deep stuff. This isn't for everybody. And I think about that a lot. It's been weeks since I finished reading the book, and I've been complaining about stuff. I'm a mountain biker. I love mountain biking, but I live in Minnesota. We've had some snow. Now it's warm. And the trails where I go are just awful. They're snowy and icy and muddy all at the same time. They're just not rideable. And I'm mad about that because I love mountain biking. And then I think of Viktor Frankl and the people in the concentration camp who had to walk many kilometers to a work site in the winter without any shoes, you know? So it does change your perspective. And that's a big part of my message is just quit complaining about stuff. Just quit complaining. Now, I still do. I'm mad at my computer. I'm mad at the weather. My steering wheel in my car, the heater on it isn't even. Parts are warmer than others. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I have to complain about. First world problems, kids. This is the kind of stuff, if you've got, these kind of problems, these are good problems to have. And I still do complain, but quit complaining about it. You need to read Victor's book, Man's Search for Meaning. And I remember so clearly, under 30 years ago now, camping in the Boundary Water canoe area of Minnesota. And I love my morning coffee. And we had coffee made in a frying pan over an open fire, and it's a chilly morning, and stuff falls from the trees on a breezy day into your coffee, and then you drink it, and there's floaties in there, and it was the best coffee because it was cold out, and the coffee was hot, and it was just such good coffee. Well, listen, if you ever got that coffee at a Starbucks or something, you need to go camping to lower your standards to understand what you really need and what really matters. On that morning, floaties in my coffee didn't matter at all. And it was a great lesson, and I'm glad it happened 30 years ago. I wish I'd read Viktor Frankl's book 30 years ago. This past winter, we flew to Hawaii. And by the way, we went to the island of Molokai, which is the least visited, least touristy. What a great experience that was. We really enjoyed Molokai, or Molokai, I think they call it. It was just great. But from where I live in the middle of Minnesota, it was, I can't remember if it was 8 or 10 hours to get there. We went into Kona, and it's a long trip, and there's the layover in Seattle, and it's February, and you're late, and you know what airlines are like, right? The whole thing, and no way can I afford first class, and you know what steerage and cattle class is like? My God, you might as well be packed in a box and shipped. And it's unpleasant. It just is. But we got to Hawaii from the middle of Minnesota in 10 hours. Think of that. Okay, was it a pain? Yeah, right. Did we get to Hawaii? Did we have a great time? You bet. Was it totally worth it? Yes. And if you're going to fly, that's just the way, you got to pack your patience and your flexibility because you don't know what's going to happen. The airlines don't have your best interest in mind, and the weather happens, and it's just so much out of your control. But, a couple years ago, I had a speaking gig in Miami, and holy cow, I got there, what was it, 3 hours, I think? I'm in Miami. That's just amazing. So I don't quit complaining about that. The TSA lines are too long. Back in the day, they didn't check you at all. You could just show up, give them a false name, and get on the plane. And people were hijacking planes to Cuba back in the late 60s. You just carry a gun on the plane and say, this plane's going to Cuba. Why they went to Cuba, I don't know, but there's a bunch of them. I like TSA. I like to be safe. Now, the shoe thing, I think, is kind of silly, but the planes need to be safe, and I'm just fine with some TSA. Yeah, they could do it better, right? I am a boomer, and I read recently somebody came up with a thing they call the boomer code. The boomer code, because when we boomers get together, it's not too long before somebody starts talking about their hip and their knee and their whatever, and somebody needs to call a code gray. Quit complaining. Quit sharing your medical things. There's also a code green. Back when you look, my dad was good at this. Dad had a grocery store, as did his father, and he knew the price of everything. And, he'd go shopping at the grocery store, years later, and he'd pick it up and he'd say, well, we used to sell this for 7 cents. And yeah, it used to be cheaper in the past. I mean, I just spent more on a car than I did on a house 30 years ago. It's a great car. But, okay, code green. Yeah, things are more expensive. Get over it. I don't want to hear about it. The one I want to mention to you is where things were so much better in the past. Code Gold, Code Gold. And you see this online, people saying, well, we used to ride in pickup trucks, and we used to not X-ray or Halloween candy, and we used to drink from garden hoses, and we used to ride bikes without helmets, and we're fine. Yeah, you're fine, but not everybody is. The people who suffered because we didn't have those rules in place aren't here. Okay? Things were not that much better in the past. Now, were there trade-offs? Absolutely. Social media, believe me, has been not necessarily a good thing for humanity. We got to figure that out. And there's other things that aren't as good. Cars. Oh, the cars were so much safer. BS. Cars were not. Yeah, they were built like tanks, but if you had a crash, all that energy went into the occupants. Now the car, you don't have much of a crash before it's, $5,000, but the parts of the car that are supposed to give way to save you are doing their job. So you need to look at that. Cars are way more safer than they were 30, 40, 50 years ago. And I wouldn't trade a modern car. Well, I do want a classic. I want a 57 Buick. Oh, I'd love to make a resto-mod out of that. But I wouldn't drive it a lot. But I'd put modern stuff on it, disc brakes and such. But go find a car from the 50s, 60s, 70s, anytime, and that hasn't been upgraded, and try and drive it. It's scary. And everybody used to be there. Okay, so cars are so much better than they used to be. Bike helmets. I've been riding for decades, and 2 years ago I needed it. I whacked my head on a rock when I had an unplanned dismount. I'm glad I got the helmet. I always wear it. And things were better in the past? No. Maybe some things were better, but, you don't want to go back too many years and be LGBTQ. I mean, it's still not good, but it was nasty back in the day. It was, I don't have to tell you about that. When I was a kid, we did duck and cover because we could, the Ruskies were going to send bombs over here, and there was a legitimately good chance that they were going to do it. They were going to take us out first. And they were going to come over the North Pole, and they were going to attack the U.S., take out our infrastructure, and then move in. I mean, that was a real possibility. They said so, and we were scared of them, and they were scared of us. Well, where were they going to hit first? Now, remember, I'm in northern Minnesota, or I was at the time, now central. Duluth, Minnesota, Grand Forks, North Dakota, major air bases. They're going to take those out. And somebody, I'm in like second, third grade, and a teenager saying, yeah, we wouldn't be gone in the first flash, but that it would hit Grand Forks, and then the prevailing winds would bring the radiation where we are, and we'd all die or get real sick. And really, I'm 8 years old, and we're doing duck and cover. Duck, get under your desk, cover your head, like that's going to matter. It was scary. Later, we had Vietnam protests, not just protests, but riots in the streets. I remember watching the 68 Democratic Convention on TV. It was scary. Everything was out of control. Okay, I was 13 at the time. I couldn't make sense of it. And then we had the Kennedys being assassinated, Martin Luther King Jr., assassinations in the street. It really did look like things were falling apart. Now, I was a kid. I didn't have the wherewithal to try to process all this. And I don't know if anybody does. You don't know what's going to happen. So I'm telling you, if you're thinking things were better in the past, no, I don't think so. And you look at modern health care, if you're going to get sick, now's a good time to do it. I've been having some dental work done. The dentist is always so scary. My dentist is mostly just boring and a little bit annoying sometimes. It's just not a big deal, and it's a good thing to do. My teeth are in good shape, but it's not like it was. And we need to remember that. We need to remember that. So this is all positive attitude stuff. The news and what gets traction in public media is the bad stuff, because that's what makes money. If you can get people to be angry and or afraid, you've got their attention and their money and their loyalty. And so many times they don't care about what's real. They just want to scare the bejeebers out of you. And you have to engage your higher brain to see beyond that. And that's part of what this is about. That's why I really want you to read Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Because if you can find meaning in a Nazi concentration camp, you got it. You can survive anything if you can survive that mentally. And that's what we're talking about. So I hear a lot of people, they hate roundabouts. Okay, we're seeing more and more roundabouts. They're cheaper than stoplights, and they work so much better, but they're new, and so people are scared of them, and people don't drive right through them. They figure it out, but oh my gosh, you would have thought the modern civilization was coming to an end. In the county where I live, there was a county commissioner, an elected official. He had been a state representative at the state level, but then a county commissioner. He didn't like roundabouts because he said it was a sign of creeping European socialism. And these are the kind of people that get elected to office. And they're just roundabouts, people. There's talk of us moving to the metric system. Oh, what a great idea. Talk about anybody that builds things and measures and carpenters. When you do it under metric, it's just so much easier than figuring things down to the 64th of an inch. And we will switch, but people are so afraid of it, and there's no reason to. I go spend a couple weeks in Canada or somewhere where they use the metric system. Not even 2 weeks. We were in Nova Scotia for 10 days, I think, a couple of years ago, and you just start thinking in metric, and you're not doing the math in your head. You just start living under that, and it makes so much sense. It's the way to go. All right, so I've kind of gotten off track here. This is such a weird episode. We're talking about Viktor Frankl surviving the concentration camp. And I'm telling you to have a positive attitude. And I can't explain it all, but if you read the book, you'll get it. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Man's search for meaning. And really, it comes down to what's the meaning of life? Why are we here? I mean, that's the kind of questions that we ask when you're moving from coping to thriving. What's the purpose of your life? Why do you exist? And so I've got two things. A quote from Pablo Picasso, and I just love this. He said, "The meaning of your life is to find your gift. The purpose of your life is to give it away." The meaning of your life is to find your gift. The purpose of your life is to give it away. And I love that because that does give your life meaning. What makes you happy? What gifts do you have? I've talked about that earlier, that so many times people don't appreciate their gift. And do it. Find your gift. Do it with courage and abandon and give it away. That will make you happy. And it may not be what you expected, but it seems like the way it works. What do you like? What do you want? Do it. Do that. I thought as I was reading Frankl and listening, Man's Search for Meaning, trying to find a purpose in your life. What is the purpose of your life? And the question came to me, if you were God and you were in charge and you had to come up with a meaning for somebody's life, for your life, what would it be? What if you could choose the meaning of your life? What if you could choose it for yourself? And I think that is the answer. You do choose it for yourself. It's not out there somewhere. It's here. You choose the meaning of your life. Find your gift and give it away. See what happens. I think it's a good thing to do. I'm Dan Hegstead. My book is Next Steps, Tools for Transforming from Coping to Thriving. It is available on my website, danhegstead.com. And yes, you should hire me as a speaker. Pass it along to somebody who hires speakers and trainers. All that's on my website, danhegstead.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Next Steps, Tools for Transforming from Coping to Thriving.